Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Watch No Evil. This is Zach.
And this is Matt.
And this week we'll be talking about the 2020 hit game Among Us, which is a task-based online serial killer simulator for up to 10 players, where 1 to 3 players are randomly selected to be murderous imposters charged with killing all the crewmates. They must do so before the crewmates complete their assigned tasks and without getting caught. This game was made by Inner Sloth, originally a team of 3 people, Forrest Willard, Amy Liu, and Marcus Bramonade? Bramande? I don't know. Not Bramonade. That's too French. So we've played a whole lot of this game.
Hundreds of hours.
Yes. Yeah, at risk of sounding elitist, we actually started playing the game before it got cool.
It's so crazy that it exploded the way that it did, because when we were playing it, we had come up with this whole thing. We had a whole system of us going online, and there was not a single piece of Among Us fan art or anything when we started.
And it's not like we were really early adopters or anything. This came out in 2018. We started playing it in it was shortly after COVID became a thing. I think it was like in May.
We've been playing since at least February, because we played it on our phones. I played it on my phone for at least quite a while before I switched over to the Steam version, which I would say is the easier way to play the game. I actually much prefer to play it on the Steam version, and I know that it's out on Switch, but it's just not as comfortable, I think, on the Switch yet.
It's almost worse on Switch than it is on the phone.
And it's not a bad game on the Switch, I mean. It's not as optimal when you look at the Steam version.
There are just some weird glitches that happen sometimes, and I think it's like the interactivity between the Switch. I'm sure if you had a game of all these people on Switches, it would be fine. Mm-hmm. But I think it's the interactivity between like the PC and the mobile and the Switch and all these different kinds of platforms.
Yeah, the crossplay might not be as strong. But, I mean, the game, regardless of the actual porting of it, is just a fantastically simple game. And it's one of those where you can really pick it up and anybody can play it. And it's just a lot of fun, and it's a continuation of the social deduction genre, which I think was already starting to gain popularity. Games like Werewolf or Mafia or Town of Salem, they've never gone out of fashion. Among Us, so far, I think is the best and most successful version of any of those, because now you actually get to have agency in the things that you do. Like, if you kill someone and vent into a different room and you get away scot-free, chances are you got away scot-free. It's so much more enjoyable, I think, for both the players and for the imposters, because it's pretty delicately balanced. And I hate Werewolf.
I don't think I've actually ever played Werewolf, but it's funny that you mention Mafia. The original name for this game was going to be Space Mafia. Let's be honest, it's Mafia with a space skin on it. And it's a little more interactive than Mafia would be, where like you're actually doing the tasks as opposed to like Mafia, you're like supposedly doing the things, but you're just sitting there.
Yeah, it sucks in regular Mafia because it's just like, all right, now we're going to have the night phase. So if you're innocent, you just sit there for, 10 minutes and not do anything. But in this, it's like, okay, it's the crew phase and the deduction phase, the voting phase. And during that phase, you are actively participating in a game. It is still giving you something to do. So I think it's significantly more engaging because you get to be worrisome of other players, which is always fun. We always like to have the mild scare. But then also, you get to participate in the tasks that can complete the game. It's not, am I going to get randomly picked and die and be out of the game? Well, no. That can happen in Among Us, but if you get voted out and you were the imposter, you get to still do sabotages, you still get to participate, you can still close doors, and if you're the innocent, you still have an active role because you have to do your tasks, or the imposters can win.
Yeah, it does a great job of keeping you engaged, even if, like you said, even if you're dead. I think the only situations where I have, like, nothing to do and I start getting bored is if I happen to be the first one killed, and then I fly around as a ghost and complete my tasks really quickly, and then I'm just kind of waiting around for people to either figure it out or finish their tasks, or for the imposter to just kill everyone.
And the thing that I like about this game, and also the thing that I think is wrong with a lot of social deduction games, is there are a lot of ways to play this that are options for both the imposter and the crewmate. In Werewolf, if you're playing with a group of 10 people who all intimately know how Werewolf works, it is so easy to figure out who the killer is, or to figure out who the werewolf is. I don't know, there's something about it that's just significantly less fun and a little bit more metagamey, because the amount of possibilities are drastically reduced. Versus in Among Us, where it's gonna be based half on who you kill and based half on where you are. So I think personalities come out a lot more. By stripping out the roles, you get a simpler version of the game. But if you're not a talkative person and you get the imposter, you get to not be talkative and no one's gonna question you. It's really easy to look over those people. And then if you have somebody who's broadly outspoken, which that's how I used to be in the game, and I think I still am sort of like that, although I do like to switch it up a little bit every once in a while. You can be broadly outspoken and it's just like, okay, well, he's commanding the room, but he also does that when he's not the imposter. So it's, you can take broad swings or you can take not broad swings, and both count, versus in the other social deduction games where so much of it relies on you playing it as simply and safely and in the most boring way possible.
Right. I mean, I've never played Werewolf, like I said, but I always think of Werewolf as like an icebreaker kind of game where you play it with people that you don't know that well. Is that usually the situation?
Yeah, I've never played Werewolf with a group of friends. I've played with acquaintances.
Like you said, it's really easy to figure out once you like get to know people. So that's what makes it, I think, a good icebreaker game. But this is not that. In fact, when we play Among Us, we're mostly playing with the same group of people pretty much every time. And we have a Discord server that we hang out with, and Among Us is pretty much the main game that we play on there, or at least we have been since quarantine. And it's just so interesting because we have been playing it for so long, and it did become a trend, and now the trend is like dying out. But we're still playing Among Us. It's just interesting how our gameplay has evolved over time, because we have gotten to know all each other's habits, each other's behaviors, and it's funny how we've had to evolve. When you're the imposter, you have to evolve into like behaving in a different way or like trying a different strategy. And then when we finally got enough people playing it, we started adding 2 imposters. I don't think we've ever done 3 imposters before.
No, we haven't, and I don't think that with our group style it would ever work.
Right. We're all too good at being the imposter at this point, so it would just be a slaughter. If there were 3. But even with 2, it really mixes things up, because it totally depends on the dynamic between the 2 imposters. Some people will be overly trusting of the other imposter and think that there is this unsaid communication, and the 2 imposters be in a room with one crewmate, and someone will think, all right, I'll just kill him and then we're fine, we're good to go. But then someone else walks in the room and like messes all that up, so then you have to frame your imposter buddy. So it totally depends on the dynamic between the 2 or 3 imposters if you choose to play that way.
Yeah, and being willing to do that, I think, is a big thing too. And on the subject of us learning each other's gameplay, I think that that's one of the reasons that we have all sort of been able to keep up with the game and just continue playing it. I mean, we're not making content out of it. One of the reasons that I think the trend died off so quickly was because there was this huge rushed influx of content creators all doing Among Us at the same time. It got so saturated so quickly that they sort of milked it for all of its possibilities. And instead of allowing it to be a social deduction game with friends where you're developing a relationship with the person as crewmate or imposter, they were focusing more on what is the thing that's going to keep an audience. And so we get to learn and we get to evolve. But I've seen YouTubers play this where they play the same way every single time. And if people recognize that, they're done. The game is over because they can't adapt to the game anymore. They have not given the time or the group of people a chance to react, interpret, and adapt, which we totally have, because there will be phases where I'll kill it as imposter. Like, we had a game recently where I swept because I knew exactly where people were going. But then, for example, Phil, one of our friends, made up this rule, which was, if I'm dead at the beginning and nobody knows who it is, it was probably Matt. And then turns out it worked a lot more than I was expecting. So now I have to carefully not target Phil first, otherwise people will be suspecting. And I know that that's a very facile sort of example, but that's how we developed and continue to play the game. The thing that pisses me off, though, is that Inner Sloth is a 3-man dev team. There's not a whole lot that they can do, but I hate the modding community that has come in and tried to, like, so vastly change the game. Like, I don't know if you've seen, but there are, like, proximity chat mods, which that one I don't think is the worst.
I mean, it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, there's also, like, a zombie mod, and there is a mafioso mod where it's like mafioso, godfather, janitor. There's that kind of gameplay too. And it also became a situation where they needed to milk content out of it so quickly that strategy and funny things happening in the game sort of flew out the window, and then it was just mod this, mod this, mod this. And then there was the move to VR. A bunch of people made VR versions of it and started peddling that, which I really dislike that because that is taking away directly from Inner Sloth as the development team. There's a whole lot of reasons why the content material of Among Us died off so quickly. And for a committed group of people, it is a game that has longevity.
Right. This game is so much more fun when you play it with a group of friends who know how to play, who have played together before, and are in voice chat with each other.
And they're not trying to be a personality. They're not trying to show off to someone. We're just like, I can just win, or I can not win, and we can just have fun lying to each other.
Right. It's a game. Like, it's not meant to be, you know, manipulated in such a way. Whether you're conscious of it or not, if you're a YouTuber, like, when you turn the camera on, you're acting in some kind of way. And because you have to conduct yourself in a way that will promote your business or hobby or whatever you want to call it. And that's just not going to work in this game because, like I said, so much of it depends on your behavior and how other people can read your behavior and how you're reading their behavior while they read your behavior, and then how they behave when you're reading their behavior, and, you know, what I'm saying here. And it's just so, like, psychological that when you're acting to any degree, it's like, it's already going to be suspicious if you're acting like not yourself, and so you're gonna get voted off.
And it's just meant to be fun.
Have fun with it. What's really fun about it is that so much of it is customizable. Like you said, the game is well balanced on its own, but if you feel like your group of people that you play it with has become too good at being the imposter, like we once thought, then you can rebalance the game. You can set the movement speed, you can set the vision radius, you can reduce the imposter vision to nothing, you can increase cool kill down, all this different stuff is so customizable, including your character. And I think that is what is so great about our group, and I'm sure many groups of people who play this game. We all have like the same color and hat and skin that we each wear each time we play the game. So you have this sense of identity within the game. How many free-to-play games do that are online and multiplayer? Like, yeah, you can do that in your online shooter that you paid $60 for, but for something like this to just offer that level of customization is great. And it also, in-game, helps you to recognize people when you see them, and if you suspect a certain person, then when someone turns on the corner and comes into your vision, you can determine whether it's them or not.
I love the fact that we sort of all adopted our permanent colors so early on, because you play as pink, I play as black. Our friend Barry plays as red and always has a plant hat, and your wife always plays as banana and is a yellow with a banana head. And then every once in a while we'll do a little color switch and it will just absolutely derail which I think is so fun to do, but also there's a lot to the metagame of just color recognition and like association, and the fact that we see that stuff immediately and like brain triggers like, okay, this is how they play. Am I safe in this room knowing how that person plays?
It's the great psychological power at play in this game. And it reminds me, and reminded you initially, of The Thing.
Yeah, I think that the movie The Thing directly influenced the creation of this game, specifically because of the Polis map, which has a lot of sort of similarities to the map of the Arctic that they use in The Thing with the labs and such. I just thought that that was a cool potential option. I do think that this game has very clear references to movies, like they understand where they are in media, and it is partially parody as much as it is game. For example, whenever they fall into the lava on Polis and they do sort of the Terminator 2 thumbs up, you know? And I think that the kill animation where the tongue flicks out and stabs through, I think that that's really clearly inspired by the Alien franchise.
Oh,
you know?
for sure.
So I wouldn't say that it is wildly out there that this game could have been inspired by The Thing, or at least that one specific map. I can't speak to the first map, because who knows about that one.
I think that the first map, well, and the gameplay in general, reminds me of the one Futurama episode of Murder on the Planet Express, which is the one where the alien like travels through the vents and like kills them one by one, or assimilates them one by one. It's very The Thing, and I think that's what it was parodying. But the fact that one of the DLC hats is the brain slug from Futurama, they've seen Futurama. We know that. So, like, this could be a straight-up game version of that episode. And that episode's hilarious, by the way. Like, go watch it if you haven't. Yeah, the Easter eggs are all over the place. There's posters on the walls, like, in the offices that are just straight-up memes. There's the Korok plant in Mira.
Forgot about the Korok plant.
Zelda reference, the Futurama brain slug hat that I already mentioned, and like the DVD, even the DVD screensaver in the office. And the one that I didn't know about that I looked up today was when you have your like ID badge, your employee ID badge that you need to scan, and you flip it over and there's that QR code on it.
Yeah.
If you scan that QR code in real life, like with your phone, it gives you the message, "Yo, Holmes, smell you later," which is a line from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Wow.
That Will Smith says all the time. So I don't know, that maybe they were like such a huge fan of the Fresh Prince that they're like, I need to put something from this in the game, because that's just like such a weird, meaningless Easter egg, but it's fun.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I never noticed that.
Yeah, I didn't either. Like I never would have even thought to scan this fake QR code. That's actually a real QR code.
Now, do you think that the hat on a hat, you know how there's the hat where it's multiple hats stacked on top of each other?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that is a reference to Janelle Monáe's camp look at the Met Gala?
I'm going to go with probably not. I'm going to go with... They're probably like, oh, hats on hats. That's funny.
Yeah. The hats are just like such a nice little touch to this. Also, the fact that they decided to forego having an Among Us 2 so that they could put more content into Among Us 1 because of how popular the game got. That is wild to me, that they were actually like, you know what? Let's just put the content that we were going to use for Among Us 2 and Among Us 1. There is not another studio of game developers that I think would do that willingly and freely. So kudos to Innersloth for not being power-hungry maniacs.
Right. And these days, with most games being online and largely cloud-based in their storage, there's almost like no excuse to make a sequel unless you're going to at least partially change the mechanics of how a game works.
Yeah.
So like if you're just going to add different maps and different hats and a different mode, why not just add that onto the existing game? You know, it's fun because it's simple, and the simplicity of the core game is augmented by all this stuff that the seasons offer, and that the deals, well, it's basically glorified DLC. That the changes in those is what like kind of spices up the gameplay and keeps the community alive.
Yeah.
And I'm sure once we get the new map that's coming out soon enough on Among Us, that will revive the player base.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I mean, Among Us is still so heavily populated for at least the Steam stats go. It's not a dead game by any means because I think that it's fun. I just want to clarify, my earlier statement that what happened was not the game was trendy and then the game wasn't trendy. That's not a qualitative statement on the game itself. Rather, it is a statement on how the content bubble for it sort of burst when the superficial nature of the content couldn't keep up with the actual substance of the game, or rather, the substance of the game couldn't keep up with the superficial nature of the content that was being created for it. That's the same thing that happened to Fall Guys, right? Fall Guys was huge for a while, and then it became another one of those things where the content bubble burst because it became too densely saturated too quickly. And I think that the difference between Fall Guys and Among Us, though the characters are the same shape, there's something very different about having a close group of friends that you can go back to, play with, and learn with, and fight against in Among Us versus Fall Guys where you're competing against 75 other faceless people on the internet.
And I think a large part of why we've hung on to it for so long is we've discovered that our server really likes task-based games.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's the great thing about Among Us is that they drop you into this map with basically no instructions. There's the map that you can see where your tasks are, but then otherwise, like when you pull a task up, it doesn't say, this is how you do it. It's just, figure it out. Most of them are very intuitive. There are a few that are not super intuitive, mostly on Polis, but you can always figure them out. And what's great about that is that each map offers a different experience and different tasks and require different imposter strategies to be played on there. Like, for example, Mira is the one base station that has like all these narrow hallways, and people tend to naturally get grouped up in Mira because of the narrow passageways. So as the imposter, you have to use the vents far more often. There are more vents on that map because they did such a good job balancing this.
Right.
And in fact, they did such a good job balancing that I didn't even realize until I was thinking about this earlier today that on Mira, the reason they have that airlock for that one area is to help split up the players.
Yes, and it gives you sort of like a timer-based mechanism that gives the imposter a chance to do something. I think that you get the same thing with the light sabotage. The light sabotage isn't a way for the imposter to get the crewmates to not see where they're going. If you've played the game, you know. What it is there for is if you want to play really sneaky, if you want to split people up that are grouping together, you have to follow them, stalk them, hit the lights, and then kill one of the two so that it splits them up. Because doing so, if you can get away with it when the lights are out, is gonna put suspicion on that person. Each of the sabotages in the game are really important because they are really well balanced. The oxygen is always in two separate locations that are fairly disparate, so that in later game, you've got to split the room. Or the reactor on Polis, like that's going to pull people apart or away from each other. The communications are great for early game because people haven't had time to memorize their tasks yet. So they did a really wonderful job of actually giving the imposter opportunities.
The game is fun and can be hilarious in moments, but can also get really tense. And I will say, for certain groups of friends, this game would not be a good idea because there can be really like underhanded moves, but it's all out of the name of the game. The game is all about deception, and not everyone is going to enjoy being deceived or, having to be the deceiver. In fact, some people in our group are not so fond of being chosen to be the imposter, but they do like to be the crewmate and try to figure out who the imposter is and do their tasks and try to win in that way.
Oh, but I love that thing, that even when I'm not the imposter or part of it, I think that is such a staple part of the game because there has to be an element of unpredictability to it that allows you to not get tired or stale. And I had a whole spree where my goal was to either survive as the crewmate or get Devin, one of our friends, thrown out or killed. Regardless of his affiliation, and I have no problem admitting that.
You cannot take the game personally because that's literally part of the game. It's like you're trying to figure out of this pool of people who are your friends, or maybe random people online, you're trying to figure out who is the one that's killing people. And it's like, yeah, you're going to be throwing accusations around if you think that someone did it because you don't want to die next.
Yeah, I think that overall, it is a remarkably well-finished game.
Yeah, complete with really great and hilarious animations. Like, the kill animations are so varied. They're great. And then the eject animations are also great. Like, yeah. Like you said, the Terminator one where you throw someone in the lava pit.
And for those of you who are listening to this and you're thinking like, oh, I thought that they reviewed horror stuff. This isn't really a horror game. I contest that assertion because I have never been more terrified in my life than when I just finished a task in electrical and someone hops out of the vent and starts chasing me. I've never been harder jump scared than in this game I can think of.
If someone's going to argue that, compare this to a game like Dead by Daylight, which is very similar. There is one person going around trying to kill everyone, and while other people are doing tasks they're trying to escape in that game, but they're still doing tasks. It's just with a different goal in mind.
Yeah, they just have to do the same task repeatedly.
Right. It's different in a lot of its mechanics, but it's that feeling of being stalked and being prey that is the horror behind it. The consequences of dying, like you still live on as a ghost, and it's not like the traditional kind of horror idea that we would normally discuss, but there are definitely some horror elements in this tense atmosphere in every game.
Yeah. It's the sowing of mistrust in your friends that really it's the thing. It is exactly the thing. More of it is about the psychological terror that you experience of someone walking up and stopping, and you immediately go, well, why did they stop? What are they doing? Why did they stop? Why aren't they coming in? Do they think that it's me? But now I think that it's them. Are they like waiting to see if somebody else walks by? Like, there's so many potential outcomes to simple actions or simple things that you do in game. Like, I think that if you walked into medbay and you saw someone scanning and you walked in and you just stopped and like had your character stare at them, nothing in most games I think would be more frightening than that.
The real horror was the distrust in your friends that you learned along the way.
That we made along the way.
Yeah, it's a good game. If you haven't played it, it's free. You can download it on like Steam or Switch for $5. I mean, you can find it somewhere for free. So if you haven't played it, try it. It's a good time. I would suggest played with at least 7 people, and you can go up to 10. And if you're looking for guidance, I think with 7 or 8 players, it's best to have 1 imposter. And then with 9 to 10, you can have 2 imposters, but 1 imposter is still good as long as you buff the imposter, put the kill cooldown and increase their vision, all that. But I think with 10 players, you might definitely want to do 2 imposters.
Right. Good game.
Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Watch No Evil. This is Zach.
And this is Matt. If you can't trust your friends, vote them out of the airlock. Zach was not the imposter.